Amelia Hart's Tuesday morning began like countless others in Brighton City. Resume clutched tightly in her hand. She carried nothing but determination in her chest and exactly $4,227 left in her bank account. Barely enough for a week's groceries. Certainly not enough for next month's rent. Rising above her like a glass and steel monument stood the Harrington Global Tower, 72 stories high, home to one of the wealthiest families in America. She adjusted the sleeves of her second-hand blazer and forced a confident smile at her reflection in the revolving glass doors. "You can do this," she whispered. Today's interview promised what she needed most: stability, benefits, a real paycheck. The elevator rocketed upward, her stomach twisting as the numbers flashed. Amelia clutched her folder of references tighter, repeating the mantra in her head: "Don't be nervous, don't ramble. Don't mention the rejection letters piling up on your desk at home." When the elevator doors slid open, a sleek woman with platinum blonde hair was waiting. "I'm Evelyn, Mr. Harrington's chief of staff. Follow me, please." Her voice was polite but clipped, her smile distant. Amelia followed through corridors polished to perfection until they reached a door requiring Evelyn's fingerprint to unlock. Inside, a conference room opened to a sweeping view of the city. "Wait here, Mr. Harrington will join you shortly. There's water if you need it. And one thing, he values directness. Don't waste his time." With that, Evelyn was gone. Amelia set her folder down and noticed a contract already placed on the table. They must be confident in me, she thought, though her nerves prickled with curiosity at the boldness of leaving such a document in plain sight. Before she could resist the temptation to peek, the door swung open. Sebastian Harrington entered without hesitation. He was younger than Amelia expected, mid-30s with sharp features and striking green eyes that studied her like an equation. No smile, no handshake, only a presence that filled the room in his tailored charcoal suit. Amelia Hart. His voice was deep, precise, more a statement than a greeting. "Sit." She obeyed, heart hammering. "Your resume says you graduated top of your class at Cambridge with degrees in economics and business administration. Internship at Goldman. 3 years at a nonprofit." "Yes, I didn't ask for elaboration," he cut in, taking the seat opposite her. "This position demands absolute discretion, availability at all hours, and unwavering loyalty. The compensation is generous. The expectations severe." Amelia nodded, uncertain if speaking again would be permitted. "My family's company is facing a succession crisis," Sebastian continued. "My grandfather's will dictates that control of Harrington Global passes only to a direct heir before my 36th birthday. That gives me less than 2 years," her brow furrowed. She could not see how this connected to an executive assistant role. "If I failed to produce an heir, control shifts to my cousin Edward, who would dismantle everything my family built over generations." His jaw tightened. "I need a solution, and you fit the profile." Amelia blinked in disbelief. "I'm not sure I understand what you mean." He slid the contract across the table. Her eyes fell to the bold header. A chill ran through her as the words formed on her lips. "This is a marriage contract?" "Correct. I need a wife who will bear an heir within 18 months. After 5 years and a child, you walk away with $10 million, your debts erased, a home in your name, financial freedom. All legal. All binding." Amelia stared, her heart pounding. Surely this was a twisted joke. "That's insane. And probably illegal." "It's neither," he said evenly. "It's a business arrangement. You provide the heir, I provide financial security. Nothing more. Why me?" she demanded. "Because you're intelligent, discreet, and unconnected to my social world. You're healthy. You have no messy family ties. You're motivated but not greedy. Your background suggests character." Heat rose to Amelia's face. "I came here for a job interview, not to be bought." Sebastian's gaze was unwavering. "I'm not buying you. I'm offering a partnership. Temporary, yes, but one that would change the course of your life. And if I refuse, then you leave today with a generous fee for your time. But consider this: $87,000 in student debt. No job offers. Rent overdue. How long can you withstand that pressure?" Amelia rose, her hands trembling. "I'm not a commodity, and I'm not a broodmare." "No," he said calmly. "You're a woman with limited options, presented with an opportunity that resolves all of them at once. Sign, bear one child, and you're free, set for life." Her pulse thundered in her ears. "This is offensive. This is madness. You have until tomorrow morning. My driver will be outside your apartment at 9 o'clock. If you're not there, I'll assume you've declined. I don't need until tomorrow, she snapped. The answer is no. But as she turned to leave, his voice followed her. The alternative is Evelyn. She's efficient but ruthless. Any child she bore would be nothing more than leverage. I'd prefer someone with more humanity. Amelia froze. His tone was cold, calculated, but there was an undercurrent she couldn't ignore. Slowly, she looked back. And what makes you think I'd be any different? For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Because you gave 3 years to children's advocacy work when you could have chosen a higher salary. That reveals more than your resume. Her throat tightened. Without another word, she left, heart racing. Yet as the elevator carried her down, the weight of his words and the reality of her circumstances pressed hard against her chest. Rent overdue, rejection letters, debts piling, and the memory of green eyes that saw through her like glass. What kind of man makes such an offer, and what kind of woman might ever consider it? Amelia's apartment could only be described as cozy if cozy meant a studio hardly bigger than a storage unit, with pipes that groaned at 3 a.m. and a neighbor who practiced drums religiously at dinner time. She kicked off her worn interview heels and collapsed onto her fold-out sofa bed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that faintly resembled Winston Churchill. The business card Sebastian Harrington had slipped into her portfolio, burned in her pocket like a coal she couldn't shake. She muttered aloud, "This is insane. Completely insane." Her phone buzzed on the table. The student loan company again. Their 4th reminder this week. Amelia silenced it, then checked her mini-fridge. A single expired yogurt and half a bottle of cheap wine stared back. Dinner of champions. She poured the wine into a chipped mug and carried it to the sofa, her gaze catching on the small framed photo of her parents. Her father had died of cancer when she was 12. Her mother from a sudden stroke during Amelia's sophomore year of university. The medical bills had drained everything, leaving her with nothing but debts and determination. She whispered to the photograph, "What would you think of this, Mom? Your daughter actually considering a contract to bear a child for a man as cold as stone?" The photo, of course, gave no answer. Only her mother's warm smile frozen in time. Another buzz. This time it was her landlord. Amelia forced cheer into her voice as she answered. "Hello, Mr. Singh." "Miss Hart." His tone was apologetic but firm. "It's been 2 weeks since rent was due. I've been patient, but business is business. If I don't have the full amount by Friday, I'll have no choice but to proceed with eviction." The line went dead before she could respond. The wine mug slipped from her hand, splashing onto the floor. Friday. Only 3 days away. $10,000 in medical debt, $87,000 in student loans, and homelessness looming over her head. Her hand shook as she pulled Sebastian's card from her pocket, running her thumb over the embossed gold lettering. $10 million. Financial independence, security. All it would cost her was 18 months of her life, her body, and maybe her soul. This is prostitution with extra paperwork, she muttered into the silence. But was it really? People had married for money for centuries. Arranged marriages still existed in many cultures. At least Sebastian had been honest. There was no disguise of romance here, only clarity. Curiosity gnawed at her. She opened her old laptop and typed Sebastian Harrington Global into the search bar. Articles filled the screen instantly. Harrington Tech expands green energy division. Fortune 500 bachelor leads philanthropy drive. Sebastian Harrington donates millions to cancer research. That last one caught her breath. Cancer research. The very thing that might have saved her father. She read deeper. Harrington Global had an impeccable environmental record, fair labor practices, parental leave policies that other corporations envied. Their charitable foundation had built schools overseas and funded scholarships for underprivileged students. "He's not entirely heartless," Amelia whispered. "Just personally unbearable." The night stretched long as she researched, paced, cried, and thought. By dawn, dark circles rimmed her eyes, but a strange calm had taken hold. She showered, dressed in her second-best outfit, and packed a small overnight bag. At precisely 9 o'clock, a sleek black car rolled to a stop outside her building. The driver, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, stepped out. "Miss Hart, I'm Margaret. Mr. Harrington sent me. If you've made your decision, please come with me." Amelia tightened her grip on her bag, glanced up once at her tiny apartment window, and said firmly, "I have questions and conditions. Margaret smiled knowingly. He expected nothing less, please. The Harrington estate rose from the Connecticut countryside like something from a history book. Sweeping lawns, stone fountains, and a mansion that seemed plucked from a registry of national landmarks. Amelia's palms dampened as Margaret guided her through sculpted gardens into a sunroom filled with light. Sebastian Harrington sat at a table, flipping through financial reports as if nothing unusual were about to happen. He looked up when she entered, his expression unreadable. "You came," he said simply. "I have conditions," Amelia replied, her voice steady. He gestured to the chair across from him. "I'm listening." Amelia met his gaze without flinching. "First, co-parenting rights legally guaranteed regardless of our marital status. Second, an independent account in my name with enough funds to support myself. Third, I continue working, modified for pregnancy but not abandoned. Fourth, a genuine marriage on paper. No prenup that makes me look like a gold digger or the child illegitimate. Fifth, I choose the doctors and the birth plan. Sixth, the child must never know about our arrangement. They deserve to believe they were conceived in love. And seventh, most importantly, this is a partnership. You don't own me. We make every decision together." Sebastian studied her like a strategist recalculating a complex equation. Finally, he nodded. "Your conditions are reasonable. I accept them with one amendment. We must convincingly present a love story to the public. Appearances at events, appropriate affection, a narrative of whirlwind romance." Amelia's stomach tightened. "And how do you propose to explain our sudden marriage?" "Easily," Sebastian said. "We met at a charity gala 6 months ago. We fell in love privately. Life is short, so we decided not to wait. The media adores impulsive billionaire romances. My publicist will handle the details. Evelyn already has a backstory prepared." The speed of it all left Amelia dizzy. "When will the world know?" "At the Harrington Foundation Gala 3 nights from now. We'll announce our engagement there. The wedding follows within a month." Her pulse thudded in her ears. "And when do we start?" "Trying for the heir? According to the doctors, the optimal time is next week," Sebastian replied calmly. Her mouth fell open. "You've consulted specialists before I even agreed?" "I prepare for every possibility," he answered evenly. Then his expression darkened. "There's one more thing. My cousin Edward knows about the succession clause. He'll be watching for any sign that this marriage is a sham. He's dangerous, vindictive, obsessive. He'll try to expose us. Can you convince him, and the world, that you've fallen in love with me?" For the first time, he said her first name, Amelia, and the sound of it on his lips made her pulse stumble. She lifted her chin. "I was in drama club in school. I can play a role." "This isn't a school play," Sebastian said softly. "The stakes are much higher." "I understand," Amelia replied. $10 million. My freedom. Your family's legacy. A child's future. I won't fail." Sebastian extended his hand. "Then we have a deal." Amelia shook it, her heart racing. His grip was firm, but instead of letting go, he lifted her hand and brushed his lips across her skin. "Sebastian," he corrected quietly, "if we are to be convincing, you'll need to use my first name." The warmth of his lips lingered against her skin long after he released her. And though she reminded herself this was calculated, she couldn't help but wonder if Sebastian Harrington was far more complicated than she dared imagine. "Stand still, please," the tailor murmured, his mouth full of pins as he adjusted the emerald silk gown around Amelia's frame. The woman in the mirror was a stranger. 3 days of intensive fiancé training, as Amelia privately called it, had transformed her from a struggling nonprofit worker into someone who could pass for old money. Her hair was sleek and styled, her nails flawless, her skin polished by products she couldn't even pronounce. The gown, custom made to match Sebastian's green eyes, hugged her curves with elegance she hadn't realized she possessed. Around her neck glittered a diamond pendant, borrowed from the Harrington family vault, catching the light with every breath. "You clean up well," came a deep voice from the doorway. Amelia turned, her eyes landing on Sebastian, immaculately dressed in a black tuxedo. For a moment she forgot everything about their arrangement and simply took him in. He looked unfairly handsome, the kind of man who belonged on magazine covers. "Is that your idea of a compliment?" she asked, lifting one brow. "A statement," he replied smoothly, stepping inside. "You look like you belong in my world. That was the point of this makeover, wasn't it? She gestured to the stylists, makeup artists, and designers who had been buzzing around her since dawn. With a subtle nod, Sebastian dismissed the entourage, leaving them alone. He crossed the room, his reflection joining hers in the full-length mirror. For a moment, they looked like the perfect couple, two halves of a carefully staged photograph. "Are you ready for tonight?" he asked, his voice low. "As ready as I can be," Amelia answered. "After memorizing your family tree and our whirlwind romance, I should probably get an honorary degree in fiction writing. Did you know we had our first kiss on your yacht at sunset in the Mediterranean?" Sebastian's mouth curved faintly. "I've been briefed, and apparently I proposed in the garden of the Royal Regent Hotel after flying you there on a surprise weekend getaway. Very romantic of me." "You're quite the fictional dream fiancé," she teased. He reached into his pocket. "Speaking of which," a small velvet box appeared in his hand. He flipped it open, revealing a diamond ring so radiant that Amelia gasped despite herself. The emerald-cut stone glittered with cold perfection, framed by a halo of smaller diamonds. "Family heirloom?" she managed. "No, designed for you," Sebastian said simply. "May I?" Her throat went dry, but she nodded. His touch was unexpectedly gentle as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "Evelyn provided your measurements," he explained, misinterpreting her surprise. "Of course she did." Amelia stared at the ring, its weight both foreign and significant. "It's beautiful." It needed to be convincing, and just like that, the flicker of intimacy vanished. Amelia straightened her shoulders, reminding herself this was performance. "So what's my script for tonight?" "Stay close to me," Sebastian instructed. "Smile, look enchanted. I'll handle most of the conversations. If anyone asks how we met, charity gala for children's literacy 6 months ago. You spilled champagne on me, and instead of being annoyed, I asked for your number." Amelia repeated the line smoothly, "And we kept it quiet because I was wary of publicity." "Correct." He nodded approvingly. "If my cousin Edward approaches you, be civil, but don't get too comfortable. Decline drinks, dodge his questions. He'll look for cracks in our story." "I'm not afraid of him," Amelia said firmly. "You should be." Sebastian's tone sharpened. "He isn't just after the company. He's obsessed with destroying anything I care about." Amelia tilted her head, curiosity tugging at her. There's history there, isn't there? For a moment, she thought he would brush her off. Then, with a rare flicker of vulnerability, he admitted, "He blames me for his sister's death. Isabella and I were engaged. She died in a sailing accident 10 years ago. I was at the helm. The investigation ruled it an accident, but Edward refuses to believe it." Amelia's irritation softened. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "It isn't in the briefing notes," he said curtly, checking his watch. "We should go. The car is waiting." She reached out impulsively, touching his arm. "Thank you for telling me." His gaze dropped to her hand, then lifted to meet hers. Something unguarded passed through his eyes, gone as quickly as it appeared. "It changes nothing about our arrangement." "No," she agreed softly. "But it helps me understand you better." For a fraction of a second, she thought he might say more. Instead, he masked himself again, the inscrutable titan of business. "Understanding isn't required. Only convincing performances." Hours later, the Metropolitan Museum's Grand Hall glittered with lights and flowers for the Harrington Foundation Gala. As Sebastian guided Amelia inside with a steady hand at her back, camera flashes erupted like fireworks. "Smile," he murmured close to her ear. "You've just agreed to marry the man you love." Her lips curved, dazzling under the photographer's glare, even as her heart hammered with nerves. Sebastian brushed his lips against her temple, the tender gesture caught on every camera. Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Harrington, who is this? Is that an engagement ring? Are you two getting married?" Sebastian tightened his hold on her waist. His voice carried with calm authority. "This is my fiancée, Amelia Hart. Tonight we are announcing our engagement." The room exploded in frenzy. Questions flew. Amelia kept her smile, leaning closer into Sebastian, her role as the adoring woman perfected under the weight of flashing bulbs. The gala unfolded like a perfectly rehearsed play. Sebastian introduced Amelia to philanthropists, business titans, and socialites, his hand steady on her back, his smile warm enough to sell the illusion of romance. Amelia played her part well, laughing lightly, meeting eyes with charm, leaning into him as though the room itself didn't matter as long as she was at his side. She's delightful, Amelia overheard an older woman whisper. So unlike his usual type. She changed everything, Sebastian replied smoothly, his gaze fixed on Amelia with an expression so tender it made her chest tighten. When the speeches began, Sebastian took the stage. He spoke eloquently about the Harrington Foundation's work, schools built, scholarships funded, children's futures shaped. Amelia listened, impressed despite herself. Then his voice shifted, softer, more personal. I'd also like to share some news, he said, extending his hand toward her. I've found someone who has brought unexpected joy into my life. Amelia, would you join me? Her legs felt unsteady as she crossed the stage. He clasped her hand firmly, his eyes never leaving hers. For years, I devoted myself to business above all else. Then Amelia quite literally collided into my life, spilling champagne down my favorite suit. Gentle laughter rippled through the audience. Instead of being annoyed, I asked for her number. Since then, she has challenged me, inspired me, and shown me happiness I never thought possible. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that Amelia has agreed to become my wife. Applause thundered through the hall. Sebastian lowered his head and pressed his lips to hers. They had agreed it would be a brief kiss, suitable for cameras, but the moment their mouths touched, something unexpected ignited. The kiss was warm, lingering, and far too convincing. For a heartbeat, Amelia forgot the contract. The crowd, even herself. All that remained was the startling truth of the way he kissed her, like a man who meant it. When he finally pulled back, her breath caught in her throat. His green eyes held hers with a darkness that startled her, as if he too was shaken by the spark. The applause roared, grounding them both back into the performance. Was that part of the act? She whispered as they left the stage. Before he could answer, a sharp voice cut through the noise. Sebastian, aren't you going to introduce me to my future cousin-in-law? The man who stepped forward carried himself with predatory grace. Edward Harrington, Sebastian's cousin, wore his charm like a weapon. His smile was too sharp, his blue eyes too cold. Edward, Sebastian said tightly, I wasn't expecting you. I wouldn't miss such an announcement. Edward reached for Amelia's hand, lifting it before she could resist. Edward Harrington, the less famous branch of the family. His eyes flickered to her ring, then back to her face. And you are Amelia Hart. Lovely to meet you, she said politely, withdrawing her hand. I don't believe I've heard of your family, Edward said, his tone silk over steel. You wouldn't have, Amelia replied smoothly. I worked in non-profit advocacy before meeting Sebastian. Children's welfare. How charitable of my cousin. Edward's smile sharpened. He always did have an eye for diamonds in the rough. Sebastian's arm slid firmly around Amelia's waist, pulling her close. Darling, didn't the foundation director want to hear your ideas for literacy programs? Of course, Amelia said, matching his cue. She nodded politely to Edward. Excuse us. Edward's voice followed them like a chill. I look forward to knowing you better, Amelia. Family is everything, especially for the future mother of the Harrington heir. Sebastian's grip tightened against her side. Ignore him. He wants to provoke me, Amelia whispered back. He knows about the succession clause, doesn't he? He suspects. But suspicion isn't proof. Sebastian steered her toward the dance floor, his jaw tense. Are you all right? I'm fine. But you... She studied his face. You look like you want to hit something. A muscle ticked in his jaw. Edward has that effect. Before she could think, Amelia reached up and touched his cheek gently. Don't let him ruin tonight. The contact startled them both. For a moment, Sebastian's eyes softened and he covered her hand with his own. He bent slightly, brushing his lips across her palm in a gesture so intimate her pulse skipped. Let's give them something else to talk about, he murmured. Without warning, he led her onto the dance floor. The orchestra swelled as he drew her into his arms, his hand steady at her back, his movements effortless. I don't know how to dance like this, Amelia admitted under her breath. Follow my lead, Sebastian whispered, his breath warm at her ear. Like everything else, she obeyed, letting him guide her through the rhythm. For a man so controlled, he was surprisingly graceful. Each step, each turn, felt like something more than performance. Everyone's watching us, she murmured. Good, he replied, his thumb tracing slow circles against her back. They should see a man utterly captivated by his fiancée. She looked up at him through her lashes, Is that what you're pretending? His mouth curved slightly. Perhaps, or perhaps not. Something flickered in his eyes, something she wasn't sure she was ready to believe. And as the music swelled around them, Amelia realized with a jolt that the most dangerous part of this arrangement might not be Edward's suspicion or public scrutiny. It might be the warmth blooming in her chest as Sebastian held her close. This was supposed to be business. Yet when his eyes met hers, her heart no longer cared about contracts at all. The next morning, Amelia sat at the breakfast table in Sebastian's Manhattan penthouse, coffee warming her hands as she scrolled through the latest headlines. Her eyes widened. They've already given us a nickname. Sibylla. Apparently we're relationship goals now. Sebastian entered the room, still in his crisp suit, glancing at the screen with faint disdain. The press is easily entertained. 3 weeks had passed since the gala. 3 weeks of staged outings, stolen kisses for cameras, whispered endearments in public places where staff or reporters might overhear, and 3 weeks of Amelia trying and failing to ignore the flutter in her chest whenever Sebastian's hand settled at her waist, or when his lips brushed her cheek with just enough pressure to feel real. Victoria sent today's schedule, she said, sliding the folder across the table. Wedding dress fitting at 11, lunch with your board members' wives at 1, and the charity auction at 7. Sebastian barely looked at the folder, his sharp gaze lingering on her face instead. You're tired. I'm fine. She forced a smile, though dark circles lurked beneath the makeup. Just adjusting to the pace. You don't have to attend every event on Victoria's list, he said. Yes, I do. The board wives' lunch is critical. They're the gossip network of your world. If they doubt us, Edward will know before dinner. Sebastian's brow furrowed. You're taking this seriously. $10 million is serious money, she said lightly, though a sting lingered beneath her words. He studied her, then said, cancel the auction tonight. We'll have dinner here instead. Just the two of us, Amelia blinked. Why? Because in 3 days we're getting married, he said evenly. And I realize I barely know you beyond what's in your file. That seems like a problem if we want people to believe this isn't exactly what it is. A business arrangement. Before she could reply, he straightened his tie and left for the office, leaving her with a question she hadn't expected. Did Sebastian Harrington actually want to know her? Later that day, Amelia stood on a pedestal in a bridal salon, the mirror reflecting a bride she could hardly recognize. The gown was a masterpiece of delicate lace and flowing silk, hand-embroidered flowers trailing down to a chapel train. She looked ethereal, elegant, and nothing like the young woman who once dreamed of vows spoken with love instead of legal weight. The designer stepped back, smiling softly. You make a beautiful bride, Miss Hart. Amelia forced a smile. Thank you. Victoria entered, eyes cool but approving. You look stunning. Daniel will be speechless. Amelia doubted anything could render Sebastian speechless, but she nodded. The cathedral has confirmed, Victoria continued briskly. Security tightened. Guest list finalized at 412. The wedding will be flawless and 400? Amelia asked in disbelief. I thought this was supposed to be intimate. Nothing involving the Harringtons is intimate, Victoria said firmly. This wedding is as much a business merger as a marriage. Every major outlet will be watching, Amelia swallowed hard. Above all, convincing, that was what mattered, but Victoria's voice dropped lower. Edward's investigators have been digging. They've spoken to your former colleagues, combed through your background. They're hoping to find anything that makes this engagement look false. Amelia's stomach sank. And have they? Nothing yet, Victoria replied. Fortunately, your life is refreshingly scandal-free. Lucky me, Amelia muttered. After Victoria left, Amelia changed back into her day dress. The weight of the engagement ring sparkled on her hand as she glanced at it under the lights. Everything was moving so fast. In just days, she would be Amelia Harrington. And within weeks, she and Sebastian would begin trying for the heir. That was the true reason for their union. Her cheeks warmed at the thought, though she told herself it was only nerves. Since their staged kiss at the gala, there had been others. Quick kisses for cameras, smiles for onlookers. But each one left her unsettled, unsure where performance ended and reality began. That evening, when she returned to the penthouse, Sebastian was waiting with 2 glasses of whiskey. To surviving lunch with the dragons, he said, raising his glass. Amelia laughed, clinking hers against his. They asked about children. I nearly melted under their stares. They suspect everyone, Sebastian said dryly. It's how they entertain themselves. She studied him curiously. Why are you home so early? I meant what I said this morning. We need to know each other. He settled into an armchair opposite hers. So tell me, favorite color? She blinked. That's your pressing concern? Start with the basics. We'll work up to the complexities. Blue, April 18th. Cats, though I never had one. My apartment never allowed pets. She sipped her whiskey, amused. Your turn. Green, January 30th. Dogs. Specifically a German shepherd my grandfather gave me when I was 10. His name was Kaiser. Slept at the foot of my bed until college. Her heart softened unexpectedly. You never got another one? I traveled too much, he admitted. It wouldn't have been fair. They traded stories late into the evening, favorite books, childhood dreams, school subjects they hated. Amelia found herself laughing at his dry humor, surprised at how intently he listened when she spoke. Behind the business armor was a man with sharper wit and more depth than she'd imagined. When he asked why she chose children's advocacy over higher-paying jobs, she told him the truth about losing her parents young, about foster care, about wanting to make a difference. His gaze sharpened at the revelation, something like respect flickering in his eyes. You're a surprising woman, Amelia Hart, he said quietly. Is that a compliment? An observation, he replied. Later they moved onto the terrace overlooking the glowing city. He stood close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Most people in your position would be focused solely on the money, but your first instinct is still for others. It's unusual in my world. Amelia glanced up at him, her pulse quickening at the softness in his expression. In that moment, he wasn't the cold negotiator who had handed her a contract. He was something else, something dangerously close to human. Before she could reply, his phone buzzed. The mask returned as he stepped away to answer. His voice was clipped, urgent. When he came back, his expression was grim. Edward has filed a motion. He's contesting the succession clause, claiming our marriage is a fraud. Amelia's chest tightened. Can he prove it? He'll try, which means, Sebastian said, his gaze locking with hers. We'll need to accelerate the timeline. Her breath caught. You mean, yes, he said firmly. The pregnancy will begin as soon as the wedding is complete. The sooner we conceive, the stronger our position. The intimacy of their earlier conversation evaporated, replaced by cold practicality. Amelia forced her voice steady. Of course. That's why we're here after all. But when she turned away, her chest ached with something she couldn't quite name. The Cathedral of St. Helena gleamed in morning light as more than 400 of New York's elite filled its towering nave. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, scattering colors across marble floors and polished pews. The air buzzed with anticipation, cameras already flashing in the hands of society journalists. In a quiet chamber off the main aisle, Amelia stood before a mirror. Her gown shimmered like frost, lace as delicate as snowflakes cascading into a long train. Her hair was swept up, adorned with family heirloom pins that Evelyn had presented that morning. Her throat was dry. 5 minutes until she walked down the aisle. 5 minutes until she legally bound herself to Sebastian Harrington. The coordinator's voice called through the door. 5 minutes, Miss Hart. Amelia nodded, though her chest felt tight. Then another voice. Deeper, familiar. May I have a moment with my bride? The coordinator hesitated. It's bad luck for the groom. But one sharp look from Sebastian silenced her. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His eyes traveled over her slowly, and for once the eloquent businessman seemed at a loss. You look... He paused. Beautiful. Her heart fluttered treacherously. He looked devastating in his tailored tuxedo. Yet his expression wasn't cold calculation this time. It was something else, something she couldn't quite name. Is something wrong? She asked. Has Edward done something? No, nothing's wrong. Sebastian reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. I wanted to give you something before the ceremony. Another prop, she thought, bracing herself. But when he opened the box, her breath caught. A simple platinum chain with a single pearl rested inside. It was my mother's, he said quietly. She wore it on her wedding day. Before her, it was my grandmother's. Amelia stared at the necklace, stunned. I can't accept this. The ring is one thing, it's part of the story. But this is your family heirloom. That makes it appropriate, Sebastian said firmly. For my wife, her throat tightened. After a long pause, she turned, allowing him to fasten it around her neck. His fingers brushed her skin, leaving warmth in their wake. My mother told me the pearl symbolized strength, he murmured near her ear. Beautiful but formed under pressure, rare but enduring. Amelia touched the pearl resting at her collarbone. I'm not really a Harrington woman. You're about to take my name before God and 400 witnesses, he replied steadily. Legally and publicly, you will be as much a Harrington as any woman who came before you. The sincerity unsettled her. This was supposed to be a transaction, yet here he was offering her something priceless. Before she could answer, Sebastian's voice softened. One more thing. About tonight. The doctors say it's optimal for conception, but I've been thinking. He hesitated, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, a rare crack in his composure. It might be wiser to wait. To establish our marriage first. To adjust before adding that pressure. Relief and disappointment tangled inside her. That's probably sensible. He met her eyes, something electric sparking in the space between them. We'll still share a suite for appearances, but nothing more. Not until we're ready. A knock at the door cut through the moment. Mr. Harrington, you're needed at the altar. Sebastian's gaze lingered on hers. I'll see you there. Her lips curved faintly. I'll be the one in white. For the first time he smiled, genuine and unguarded. I'll be waiting. Moments later, the cathedral's vast aisle stretched before her. Guests rose, turning as she stepped into view. At the altar, Sebastian stood tall, his gaze fixed on her alone. This is business, she reminded herself as her heels clicked softly against the stone floor. A contract. Nothing more. Yet when she reached him, his hand closed warmly around hers and the weight of the moment felt startlingly real. The vows echoed beneath the cathedral's arches. Amelia spoke clearly, steady despite the hollowness in her chest. But when Sebastian recited his vows, something shifted. His voice carried sincerity she hadn't expected, eyes never leaving hers. Sebastian James Harrington, take you, Amelia Rosehart, to be my lawfully wedded wife. For a heartbeat, she almost believed him. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Sebastian leaned down, pressing his lips to hers. The kiss was tender, lingering, his hand cupping her face as if she were precious. The cathedral erupted in applause, cameras capturing every angle. And though she told herself it was only performance, Amelia's heart whispered otherwise. The reception at the plaza shimmered with champagne towers, chandeliers and endless camera flashes. Amelia stayed close to Sebastian, smiling when expected, laughing lightly and dancing gracefully in his arms. To the outside world, she was the radiant new bride, blissfully in love with a billionaire. You're a natural, Sebastian murmured during their first dance, his hand warm at her waist. At pretending, she whispered back. At being a Harrington. His gaze lingered on her with an intensity that made her chest tighten. Across the ballroom, Edward watched them like a hawk, his blue eyes sharp and calculating. Amelia noticed and leaned closer to Sebastian. He's studying us. Let him, Sebastian said evenly. He sees exactly what we want him to see. A man in love with his wife. And is that all it is? She asked softly, echoing their conversation from the gala. Something flickered in his expression. What if it isn't? Before she could press, a toast was called, followed by speeches, photographs, and the cutting of their towering wedding cake. Every moment was orchestrated, flawless, convincing, yet Amelia couldn't shake the memory of his words, the hint of something real in his voice. Hours later, they slipped away, leaving the cheers of the crowd behind as a private car carried them to the airfield. The Harrington jet waited, sleek and gleaming beneath the night sky. You're quiet, Sebastian observed once they settled into the opulent cabin. Just processing, Amelia admitted, twisting the new wedding band on her finger. It's been surreal. Any regrets? His eyes stayed fixed on her. No, she said truthfully. So far you've kept every promise. I have no reason to think you won't keep the rest. His expression softened slightly. I'm a man of my word, Amelia. Always. The flight to Bora was long but comfortable, and Amelia eventually dozed against the window, waking only when Sebastian's hand touched her shoulder gently. We're landing. Paradise unfolded beneath her, Crystal water, lush palm trees, and a private overwater bungalow reserved only for them. The staff escorted them discreetly, then disappeared, leaving the two of them truly alone for the first time since the arrangement began. Amelia stepped out onto the deck, the ocean stretching endlessly beyond. "It's breathtaking," she whispered. "I thought you'd appreciate somewhere far from New York," Sebastian said. Away from the pressure, she turned to him, surprised. "Thank you." That evening, they dined on the deck as the sky burned pink and gold. Sebastian raised his champagne glass. "To Mrs. Harrington, may your sacrifice be worth the reward." Amelia lifted hers. "And to Mr. Harrington, may your heir be worth the cost." Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment, maybe. He set his glass down, his expression unreadable. "Is that really how you see this? As only sacrifice and cost?" She hesitated. "Isn't that how you see it? A contract, a transaction." "Initially, yes." He turned away, leaning on the railing, the breeze tugging at his dark hair. But perspectives change. Amelia joined him, the tropical air carrying the scent of salt and flowers. "What's changed?" He faced her, his gaze startlingly open. You're not what I expected. This arrangement isn't what I anticipated. You challenge me. You see through the mask I wear. It's disconcerting." Her pulse quickened. "Sebastian, what are you saying?" He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face, the gesture achingly intimate. "I'm saying that when I kissed you today at the altar, it didn't feel like part of a performance." Amelia's breath caught. "We agreed this was business." "We did," he said softly. "But I'm beginning to wonder if we were wrong." The confession hung between them, heavy as the dusk settling over the sea. Amelia searched his face for signs of strategy but found only vulnerability, and something that looked remarkably like hope. Her defenses faltered. Slowly, she leaned forward, closing the distance. Their lips met, this time with no audience, no photographers, no contract, just hunger and honesty. The kiss deepened, his arms pulling her against him, her hands clutching his shirt as though she'd been waiting for this without realizing it. When they finally parted, breathless, Amelia rested her forehead against his. "That wasn't in the contract," she whispered. "I'm willing to renegotiate," he replied, voice low and rough, her heart pounded. For the first time since she'd signed her name to his terms, Amelia realized the plan was changing. And maybe, just maybe, so were they. Bora wrapped Amelia in a dream. The days flowed like warm tides, sunlit mornings on the deck, afternoons swimming in turquoise water, evenings with Sebastian at candlelit dinners where the air smelled of orchids and salt. It should have felt like a holiday stage for the press, but there were no cameras here. Only them. And yet that made it more dangerous. Every time Sebastian's hand brushed hers, every glance across a table, every kiss that began soft and became something more, it blurred the lines between arrangement and reality. One night, Amelia sat curled on the deck chair, hair damp from a swim, while Sebastian brought her a glass of wine. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm thinking about..." She looked at him, his shirt half undone, the tropical moonlight casting silver across his face. "About what happens when this contract ends. When the heir is born. When 5 years are up," his jaw tightened. "You'll be free, wealthy, independent, that was the promise. And you? You'll just move on? Replace me with someone else?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he crouched in front of her, eyes sharp with something that made her breath catch. "Don't reduce this to paperwork, Amelia." "Not anymore," her chest tightened. "But it is paperwork." "Isn't it?" "It began that way," Sebastian admitted. "But now..." He reached for her hand, entwining his fingers with hers. "Now I don't want to imagine life without you in it." Her throat went dry. She wanted to tell him she felt the same. But before she could, his phone buzzed on the table. His expression hardened as he read the message. "Edward," he muttered. Amelia sat up straighter. What's he done now? "He's filed an emergency petition with the board. He claims our marriage is fraudulent and that you were paid to produce an heir. He's demanding a hearing before my birthday." Fear spiked in her chest. "Can he win?" "Not if we move quickly," Sebastian said grimly. "The only undeniable proof is conception. If we can show that you're expecting before the hearing, Edward's case collapses." The words hit Amelia with staggering weight. She had known this moment was coming, but the cold finality of it still stunned her. "So you're saying we should..." Yes, he said firmly, though his eyes softened. But Amelia, listen to me. I don't want this to feel like a duty. Not anymore. If we do this, it won't be because of Edward. It'll be because we both want it. Her breath caught. And do you? His hand cupped her cheek, his voice low, almost rough. More than I've wanted anything in a long time. The honesty in his words unraveled her defenses. Slowly, she leaned into his touch. His lips found hers, and the kiss deepened. No longer tentative, but hungry, claiming, desperate to erase the line between performance and truth. Later, when he carried her into the bedroom, the world outside, the contract, Edward, the company, fell away. What remained was heat, closeness, the sound of his breath against her skin, and the startling realization that nothing about this felt like obligation. When dawn broke, Amelia lay beside him, the pearl necklace still resting at her throat, her body aching in ways that had nothing to do with performance. She turned her head to find him watching her, green eyes unreadable but softer than she'd ever seen. "Good morning, Mrs. Harrington," he said quietly. For once, Amelia didn't correct him. She only smiled, heart racing with a dangerous truth. Because last night had changed everything. The return to New York was anything but peaceful. Within hours of landing, the tabloids exploded with speculation. Photos of Amelia and Sebastian in Bora, walking hand in hand, kissing beneath the tropical sky, flooded social media. "Public perception is on our side," Sebastian said in the back of the town car, scrolling through the headlines. "They believe us." Amelia glanced at him. "And Edward?" Sebastian's jaw tightened. "He's too quiet. That means he's planning something." By the time they reached the Harrington estate, Evelyn was waiting with a stack of folders. "Edward's attorneys are requesting financial records, communication logs, even surveillance footage from your apartment before the engagement. They're desperate for proof of fraud." Amelia felt her stomach twist. "And if they find anything?" "They won't," Sebastian said sharply. Then his gaze softened when it met hers. "I won't let him touch you." The words should have been reassuring, but Amelia couldn't ignore the knot of fear forming in her chest. She excused herself, retreating upstairs to the private suite she now shared with Sebastian. It was there, a week later, that her world shifted again. She had woken with nausea 3 mornings in a row. At first she dismissed it, stress, jet lag, too much champagne at board dinners. But when Evelyn mentioned it offhand with a knowing smile, Amelia bought a test and hid in the bathroom. Her hands trembling as she waited, 2 lines appeared, bold, unmistakable. Amelia sank onto the floor, the test clutched in her shaking hand. She had prepared herself for this moment in theory, but the reality hit with breathtaking force. She was carrying Sebastian Harrington's child. The contract, the money, the deal, all of it faded against the enormity of the truth. When she finally emerged, Sebastian was in the study reviewing documents. He looked up immediately, his sharp gaze narrowing at the sight of her pale face. "What is it? What's wrong?" Amelia held out the test wordlessly. For a long moment he didn't move. Then he rose slowly, taking it from her hand. His eyes flicked from the test to her face, and something changed in his expression, something unguarded, almost stunned. "You're pregnant," he said quietly. She nodded, her throat tight. "Yes." 1,000 emotions flickered across his face, relief, pride, disbelief, something she couldn't quite name. Finally he exhaled. "You've given me more than I could have hoped for." She swallowed hard. "Sebastian, this changes everything. For both of us." He stepped closer, his hand brushing against her cheek. Tentative yet reverent. "It does. Edward can't touch us now. The board can't question us. We've secured the future." Amelia's voice trembled. "Is that all this is to you? Securing the future?" He searched her eyes, his thumb tracing her jaw. "No, not anymore." Before she could reply, the study door opened abruptly. Edward stood there, his smile razor-sharp. "Well, isn't this touching?" Amelia froze. Sebastian's arm moved protectively around her. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "Relax, cousin. I came to deliver congratulations. Word travels fast when doctors are discreet. The future mother of the Harrington heir, how poetic." Edward's gaze swept over Amelia, sharp as a blade. "But tell me, Amelia, how does it feel to be bought and bred like cattle?" Fury surged in her chest, but Sebastian's voice cut across hers, low and deadly. "Get out, now!" Edward's smirk widened. "Careful, Sebastian. Love makes men weak." And you, my dear cousin, can't afford weakness. When the door finally shut behind him, Amelia turned to Sebastian, her heart racing. He knows. He'll twist this any way he can. Sebastian pulled her close, his voice fierce. Let him try. He can't break what we've built. But as Amelia rested her head against his chest, she couldn't shake Edward's words. Because deep down she knew the most dangerous truth of all. She had fallen in love with Sebastian Harrington. And that made her vulnerable in ways no contract could protect. The Harrington estate became a fortress in the weeks that followed. Security tightened, lawyers circled, and Edward's threats grew louder. He filed injunctions, leaked rumors to the press, and even bribed insiders in an attempt to discredit Amelia. But with every move, Sebastian countered, calm, calculated, relentless. He'll burn every bridge to ruin me, Sebastian told her one night as they sat in the library, the firelight flickering across his face. But Edward doesn't understand one thing. He's no longer just attacking me. He's attacking my family. Amelia's hand drifted protectively over her growing stomach, and families fight harder than corporations ever can. When the board convened to hear Edward's challenge, Amelia attended by Sebastian's side. She wore a sleek navy dress that showed the faintest curve of her pregnancy, the pearl necklace gleaming at her throat. Whispers rippled as they entered. Edward's lawyer made his case: fraud, deception, marriage for money. But when it was Sebastian's turn to speak, he rose with quiet authority. My cousin believes love cannot exist without spectacle or wealth. He believes everything can be purchased or manipulated. But he underestimates Amelia. She didn't come from power. She didn't ask for privilege. She asked only for fairness and respect. And she has given me something no amount of money could buy. An heir, yes, but also a partner. My future. Then, with deliberate calm, he reached for Amelia's hand, resting it against her stomach. This child is not a business arrangement. This child is our family. Gasps echoed around the room. Edward's face darkened with rage, but the board saw what mattered most: unity, conviction, and a future secured. By the end of the day, Edward's petition was denied. Sebastian remained in control. Weeks turned to months. As Amelia's belly grew, Sebastian became a constant presence at her side, attending doctor's appointments, reading baby books late into the night, even assembling a crib with more determination than he brought to board negotiations. You don't have to do all this, she teased once, watching him struggle with a stubborn screw. Yes, I do, he said firmly. You and this child are my priority now. And Amelia realized he meant it, not as part of a contract, but as a man who had finally learned to love. The night their daughter was born, Sebastian never left her side. He held Amelia's hand through every contraction, his face pale but unwavering. When the cries of their child finally filled the room, tears glistened in his eyes. She's perfect, Amelia whispered, cradling the tiny bundle against her chest. Sebastian leaned close, pressing a trembling kiss to their daughter's forehead. Thank you, he said softly, voice breaking, for everything. In that moment, all the walls he had built, coldness, control, calculation, fell away. He wasn't the billionaire heir fighting for power. He was simply a man humbled by love, by family, by the miracle in Amelia's arms. Months later, in the quiet of the estate's gardens, Amelia watched Sebastian walk across the lawn with their daughter in his arms. The sight tugged at her heart in a way no contract ever could. You're staring, Sebastian said, joining her on the bench, their daughter asleep against his chest. Just memorizing, Amelia replied, because sometimes I still can't believe any of this is real. He kissed her gently, lingering as if to prove it was. It's real, Amelia, and it always will be. No more contracts, no more deadlines, just us. Years later, when their second child was born, the press called it the fairy tale that began with scandal and ended with love. But Amelia knew the truth was simpler. It hadn't been a fairy tale. It had been hard choices, risks, and two people who started with nothing but an arrangement and found everything they didn't know they needed. And as she watched Sebastian cradle both children, his green eyes softer than she had ever seen, Amelia whispered to herself the truth she had once sworn impossible. She had married for survival. She had stayed for love.